Dr. Hana Kim sat in the cold metal chair and stared at the holographic image floating above the conference table. The creature in the projection was massive, easily the size of a 20-story building. Its dark body was covered in thick armor-like plates that gleamed with an oily sheen. 4 powerful arms ended in claws that could slice through steel like paper. But it was the eyes that made Hana's stomach turn. They burned with a red light that seemed to see everything and hate it all. "This is what we call the Devourer," said Ambassador Vextai, his blue skin rippling with nervous patterns. The alien diplomat gestured at the hologram with one of his 3 hands. "It appeared on Kepler 442b 3 months ago. Since then it has destroyed 4 mining colonies and killed over 12,000 beings." Hana leaned forward in her chair. She had been called to this emergency meeting on Station Alpha without any explanation. As a xenolinguist and former military psychologist, she studied alien languages and behavior patterns, but this looked like a job for soldiers, not scientists. "What does this have to do with me?" she asked. Commander Roth, a tall warrior from the Centauri system, activated another hologram. This one showed a mining facility being torn apart like a child's toy. The creature moved through the buildings with terrible purpose, its roar shaking the very ground. "We sent 3 full battle groups against it," Roth said, his voice tight with frustration. Energy weapons barely scratched its hide. Plasma cannons had no effect. Even our most powerful ships couldn't slow it down. "But that's not the worst part," added Dr. Zintara, the Council's chief scientist. Her crystalline form sparkled as she spoke. "Anyone who gets within 1 kilometer of the creature suffers severe mental trauma. Our soldiers report hearing voices, seeing visions of death, and experiencing overwhelming fear. Many never recover." Hana studied the tactical reports, scrolling past on her tablet. The casualty numbers were staggering. Entire squadrons of elite troops had been reduced to babbling wrecks after encountering the creature. Whatever this thing was, it attacked minds as well as bodies. "The creature emits some form of psychic energy," Vextai explained. "Our best telepaths tried to shield our forces, but the creature's mental assault is too powerful. It seems to feed on fear and pain, growing stronger with each victim." "So why call me?" Hana asked again. "I study languages, not monsters." The 3 aliens exchanged glances. Finally, Vextai activated a 3rd hologram. This one showed brain scans from different species, all displaying similar neural patterns when exposed to the creature's influence. "We've discovered something interesting about human brains," he said carefully. "Your species has unique neural pathways that other races lack. You call it emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and share feelings with others. Our scientists believe this might make humans resistant to the creature's psychic attacks." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. "You want to use me as bait?" "Not bait," Dr. Zintara said quickly. "We want you to try communicating with it. Every species we've studied has some form of language, even if it's just body movements or chemical signals. Perhaps this creature does too." Commander Roth pulled up another file. "We've analyzed hours of audio recordings from the encounters. The creature makes vocalizations that follow certain patterns. They might be attempts at communication rather than just roars of rage." Hana studied the sound wave patterns on her screen. Even without proper analysis equipment, she could see there was structure to the noises. Rising and falling tones that repeated at regular intervals. It reminded her of whale songs, complex and beautiful despite their alien nature. "What makes you think I can succeed where your armies failed?" she asked. "Because armies try to fight," Vextai said simply. "You try to understand. The creature has been contained on Kepler 442b for now, but our barriers won't hold forever. Soon it will escape to other worlds, spreading death across the galaxy. We need a solution that doesn't involve destroying an entire planet." Hana looked at the tactical display again. The creature had carved a path of destruction across 3 continents. But something about its movement patterns caught her attention. It wasn't random violence. There was purpose to its actions, almost like it was searching for something. "How long do I have?" she asked. "Our containment field will fail in 2 weeks," Commander Roth replied. "After that, we'll have no choice but to deploy a planet-killer weapon. The mining operations have already been evacuated, so there are no civilians left to save." You'd destroy an entire world to stop one creature? 12,000 dead in 3 months, Vextai said grimly. If it reaches populated systems, the death toll could be in the millions. We cannot let that happen. Hana closed her eyes and thought about her career studying alien languages. She had always believed that communication was the key to understanding between species. Most conflicts arose from misunderstandings, fear of the unknown, or failure to recognize common ground. But this creature seemed to be pure destruction, a force of nature rather than an intelligent being. Then again, the sound pattern suggested otherwise, and her training as a military psychologist had taught her that even the most violent behavior usually had underlying causes: trauma, fear, pain, loss. These emotions could drive any being to extreme actions. I'll need a full analysis of all recorded encounters, she said finally. Audio, video, sensor readings, survivor testimonies, everything you have. Then you'll take the mission? Dr. Zintara asked, her crystalline body brightening with hope. Hana nodded slowly. I'll try to talk to your monster, but I need complete freedom to approach this my way. No military interference, no weapons, no hostile actions that might provoke it further. Agreed, Vextai said immediately. Transport leaves in 6 hours. Captain Lee Dongyun will take you to Kepler 442b on his ship. He has experience with dangerous missions. As the meeting ended and the aliens filed out, Hana remained seated, staring at the hologram of the creature. Something about its posture in the recordings bothered her. The way it held its massive head, the slight tremor in its movements when it wasn't actively destroying something. She had seen similar body language in traumatized soldiers. Maybe this wasn't a monster at all. Maybe it was just a being in terrible pain, lashing out at a world it didn't understand. And if that was true, perhaps there was hope for both the creature and the galaxy it threatened. Hana gathered her equipment and headed for the transport bay, ready to face the unknown. The transport ship shuddered as it entered Kepler 442b's atmosphere. Through the small window, Hana could see the devastation below. What had once been green valleys and silver mining complexes was now a wasteland of broken rock and twisted metal. Deep trenches scarred the landscape like claw marks from some giant beast. Captain Lee Donghyun guided the ship toward the military base that served as their final outpost on the planet. He was a quiet man with steady hands and kind eyes. During the 3-day journey, he had shared stories of his family back on Earth and listened to Hana explain her theories about alien communication. "Are you sure about this, Doctor?" he asked as they began their descent. "The recordings show this thing is bigger than anything we've ever faced. One swipe of its claw could cut our ship in half." Hana checked her translation equipment one more time. The portable computers contained every known alien language database, plus new analysis software she had developed specifically for this mission. "I'm not sure about anything, Captain. But running away won't solve the problem." The base came into view, a cluster of reinforced buildings surrounded by energy barriers. Even from the air, Hana could see the fear in how the structures were arranged. Everything faced inward, as if the real threat came from outside rather than within. Commander Park Jiwon met them at the landing pad. She was a tough woman with short black hair and the kind of scars that came from real combat experience. Her greeting was brief and professional. "Dr. Kim, welcome to hell," she said, leading them toward the command center. "I hope you brought a miracle with you, because we're all out of conventional options." The command center buzzed with nervous activity. Soldiers monitored screens showing energy readings, seismic activity, and atmospheric disturbances. A massive, holographic display dominated the center of the room, showing a 3-dimensional map of the creature's movements over the past week. "It's getting more active," Commander Park explained, pointing to the red lines that traced the creature's path. "Yesterday it destroyed Mining Station 7. That's the 3rd facility this week. At this rate, it will reach the orbital elevator within days." Hana studied the movement patterns carefully. The creature wasn't wandering randomly. There was purpose to its actions, a clear progression from site to site. What were they mining at these locations? Rare minerals mostly. Iridium, platinum, some exotic crystals we use for ship engines. Commander Park called up detailed geological surveys. The creature seems drawn to the deepest excavation sites. Young technician at a nearby console suddenly straightened up. Commander, we're getting massive seismic readings from Grid 7. It's moving again. The main display shifted to show real-time sensor data. Deep underground, something enormous was stirring. The readings showed the creature rising from caverns that stretched far below the planet's surface. How deep do those caves go? Hana asked. Our deepest scans show tunnel systems extending at least 50 kilometers down, replied the technician. But our equipment can't penetrate much further. Something down there interferes with our sensors. Hana felt a piece of the puzzle click into place. What if it's not just attracted to the mining sites? What if this is its home? Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base. The main display flashed red as emergency protocols activated automatically. Contact, contact, shouted the sensor operator. Grid 7, distance 12 kilometers and closing. Ground speed approximately 60 kilometers per hour. Through the reinforced windows, Hana could see a dust cloud rising in the distance. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate with a rhythm like a massive heartbeat. Then came the sound. It started as a low rumble that seemed to come from everywhere at once. As it grew louder, the rumble became a roar that shook the building and made the air itself seem to scream. Several soldiers grabbed their heads and fell to their knees as the psychic assault hit them. But Hana felt something different. Yes, there was power in that sound, enough to drive most minds to madness. But underneath the overwhelming force, she heard something else, pattern, structure, meaning. I need to get closer, she said, grabbing her equipment pack. Absolutely not, Commander Park replied firmly. That thing will kill you before you get within a kilometer. Look at your soldiers, Commander. How many are still functional? Park looked around the command center. Half her staff were on the ground, holding their heads and moaning. The others were fighting to stay conscious despite the mental pressure. The psychic attack doesn't affect me the same way, Hana continued. This might be our only chance to make contact while it's active. The creature's roar changed pitch, becoming more complex. Hana quickly activated her recording equipment and began analyzing the sound waves in real time. The patterns were becoming clearer now, almost like musical phrases being repeated with slight variations. It's not just roaring, she said excitedly. It's trying to communicate. Listen to the harmonic structures. Captain Lee, who had been helping injured soldiers, looked up at her with concern. Doctor, even if you're right, how do you plan to get close enough to respond? Hana was already heading for the exit. The same way you talk to any frightened animal, slowly, carefully, and without showing fear. Commander Park tried to follow her, but another wave of psychic energy sent her stumbling against the wall. This is insane, you'll be killed. Maybe, Hana admitted, pausing at the door. But if I do nothing, everyone dies anyway. She stepped outside into the chaos of the approaching creature. The air itself seemed to vibrate with its presence. In the distance, she could see it now, a mountain of dark flesh and armor moving through the landscape like a living earthquake. But as Hana walked forward with her recording equipment, she noticed something that the military reports had missed. The creature's movements weren't random or aggressive. They were careful, almost hesitant, like something searching for something it had lost. She activated her translation software and began to record. For the first time in months, someone was going to listen to what the monster had to say. Hana walked across the broken ground toward the creature, her equipment pack bouncing against her back with each step. Behind her, the military base had gone completely silent. She could imagine Commander Park and her soldiers watching through, scopes expecting to witness her death at any moment. The creature had stopped moving when she emerged from the base. Now it stood perfectly still about 2 kilometers away, its massive head turned in her direction. This close, Hana could see details that the holographic displays had missed. The armor plates covering its body weren't just protection. They were covered in intricate patterns that looked almost like writing. Her translation computer chimed softly as it analyzed the creature's ongoing vocalizations. The sounds weren't random roars after all. They followed complex grammatical structures with repeated phrases and emotional inflections that reminded Hana of poetry or song. When she was still a kilometer away, the creature made a new sound, lower pitched than before, with a questioning tone that made her think of a confused child calling for its parents. Hana stopped walking and activated her portable speaker system. Very carefully, she played back a modified version of the creature's own vocalization. She had filtered out some of the psychic interference and adjusted the frequency to match what her computer suggested might be a neutral greeting. The effect was immediate. The creature's entire body went rigid, as if struck by lightning. Its massive head tilted to one side, and it made a series of rapid clicking sounds that her computer identified as possible surprise or excitement. For the next hour, Hana engaged in the strangest conversation of her life. She would play a sound, the creature would respond, and her computer would analyze the exchange for patterns and meaning. Slowly, a basic vocabulary began to emerge. The creature had a name for itself. The closest translation her computer could provide was something like last singer or lone voice. When Hana tried to pronounce it, the creature made what she could only interpret as a pleased rumble. She decided to call it Kyol, a Korean word meaning bond or connection. As their primitive communication developed, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Kyol wasn't a conqueror or destroyer. It was a survivor, possibly the last of its kind. The deep caves beneath the planet weren't just hiding places, they were the ruins of an ancient civilization. Her computer translated fragments of Kyol's story. Long ago, this world had been home to a race of beings who communicated through complex musical languages. They had built great cities deep underground, creating beautiful art and advancing their science far beyond what most species achieved. Then came the disaster. A nearby star had exploded in a supernova, bathing the planet in deadly radiation. The surface became uninhabitable, and most of Kyol's people died quickly. The survivors retreated deeper underground, but even there, the radiation slowly poisoned their world. One by one, the great cities fell silent. The population dwindled from billions to millions to thousands to hundreds. Finally, only Kyol remained, sustained by some biological adaptation that let it survive in the deepest caves where others could not. For millions of years, Kyol had slept in the planet's core, dreaming of its lost civilization. The recent mining operations had broken through to the deepest cave systems, waking it to find that its entire world had become a tomb. Hana felt tears running down her cheeks as she listened to Kyol's story. The creature wasn't attacking out of malice or hunger. It was having a breakdown, lashing out at the universe that had taken everything it had ever loved. "Dr. Kim, please respond," came Commander Park's voice through her radio. "Your vital signs are elevated, and we're reading massive emotional distress." Hana wiped her eyes and activated her radio. "I'm fine, Commander, but I need more time. This isn't what we thought. The containment barriers are failing faster than expected. You have maybe 6 hours before we lose control completely. 6 hours to bridge a gap of millions of years and countless differences in biology, culture, and language." Hana looked up at Kyol's massive form and saw something she hadn't noticed before. The creature was weeping. Massive tears fell from its alien eyes, carving new channels in the dusty ground. She activated her music player and selected a simple human lullaby. The melody was soft and sad, the kind of song mothers sang to comfort crying children. As the music played through her speakers, Kyol's vocalizations changed dramatically. The roars and clicks were replaced by something that could only be described as singing. A hauntingly beautiful melody that spoke of loss and loneliness in ways that needed no translation. For the first time in millions of years, Kyol had found someone who would listen to its song of sorrow. Back at the base, soldiers and officers crowded around the communication equipment, listening in amazement as the monster that had terrorized 3 star systems began to sing a lullaby with a human woman. Dr. Yoon Minho, monitoring from the orbital station above, sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. "Cancel the planet killer deployment. We may have found a peaceful solution." But even as hope began to grow,
Sensors throughout the system detected incoming ships. The Council fleet was already on its way, carrying weapons capable of destroying
entire worlds. They would arrive in less than 18 hours, expecting to find either a dead monster or a dead planet. Hana looked up at the stars becoming visible in the darkening sky and knew that her greatest challenge wasn't learning to communicate with Kjol. It would be convincing the galaxy that some monsters were worth saving. Dawn broke over the devastated landscape as Hana sat cross-legged on a flat boulder. Her equipment spread around her like an electronic campsite. Kjol had moved closer during the night, now resting only a few hundred meters away. The massive creature had curled its body into what almost looked like a sleeping position, though its eyes remained alert and focused on Hana. Throughout the night, they had continued their musical conversation. Hana would play recordings of human music, folk songs, classical pieces, even some pop music from her personal collection. Kjol would respond with its own melodies, teaching her the musical language of its lost people. The breakthrough came when Hana played an old Korean folk song about a mother mourning her lost children. The melody was simple but deeply emotional, telling a story of love that transcends death. Kjol's response was immediate and overwhelming. The creature began to sing a song so beautiful and sad that it seemed to make the very air weep. Hana's translation computer worked frantically to decode the meaning, but some things needed no translation. This was a funeral song, a memorial for an entire civilization that had died while Kjol slept in the deep caves. "Dr. Kim, we need to talk," came Commander Park's voice over the radio. "The orbital station reports Council ships dropping out of hyperspace. They'll be here in 12 hours. Hana looked up at the morning sky where she could already see the bright dots of approaching starships. How many ships? 37 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. "They're not coming to negotiate, Doctor. They're coming to finish this." Ko Yunbi, the base's chief engineer, had been monitoring the communications between Hana and Kjol all night. She was a practical woman who solved problems with tools and technology rather than words. But even she had been moved by the creature's songs. "Doctor, I've been analyzing the harmonic patterns in the creature's vocalizations," she said over the radio. "I think I can build something to help you communicate more effectively." "What kind of something?" "A harmonic translator. It would convert human speech and music into the creature's native frequency ranges. Right now you're only catching fragments of what it's trying to say." Hana looked at Kjol, who had been listening to the radio conversation with obvious interest. The creature's head was tilted in the universal posture of curiosity, and it made soft questioning sounds that needed no translation. "How long would it take?" "Give me 6 hours and all the spare parts in the base. I can't promise it will work perfectly, but it should be better than what you have now." While Ko Yunbi worked on the translator, Hana continued her musical dialogue with Kjol. She learned that the creature's people had been natural musicians, using song not just for communication but for everything from scientific research to emotional healing. Their entire culture had been built around harmony and melody. The mining operations that woke Kjol had broken through to what the creature called the song chambers, vast underground spaces where its people had created their greatest musical works. To Kjol, the mining equipment's harsh mechanical sounds were like screams of pain coming from the graves of its ancestors. No wonder it went crazy, Hana muttered to herself. It woke up to find strangers desecrating everything it held sacred. By midday, Ko Yunbi had finished her work. The harmonic translator looked like a large backpack covered in speakers, sensors, and processing units. It wasn't pretty, but when Hana tested it, the results were remarkable. For the first time, she could clearly understand Kjol's words. The creature wasn't just making random sounds. It was reciting epic poems about its people's history, singing love songs to individuals who had been dead for millions of years, and teaching Hana the musical mathematics that had formed the foundation of its civilization science. "My people called this world harmony," Kjol sang through the translator. "We sang it into beauty over thousands of generations. Now strangers tear holes in its flesh to steal the bones of our ancestors." Hana felt the pain in those words like a physical blow. "We didn't know. My people, the miners, they didn't understand what this place meant to you. Understanding comes too late. I am the last voice of my people, and soon even I will be silenced. Not if I can help it, Hana replied, switching the translator to convert her words into Kjol's musical language. There are others who can learn to listen, others who can help preserve your people's memory. Kjol's massive head swayed slightly. A gesture Hana had learned indicated deep thought. You would do this? Even though my grief has brought death to your kind? Grief makes people do terrible things sometimes. But grief can also be healed, if someone cares enough to try. Colonel Nam Tae-hyung arrived at the base just as the Council fleet entered the planet's atmosphere. He was a career military officer who had seen more battles than most soldiers could imagine. But as he listened to the translated conversation between Hana and Kjol, even his hardened expression began to soften. Doctor, the Council representatives want to speak with you immediately, he said. They're not happy about the delay in eliminating the target. Tell them the target has a name and a story worth hearing, Hana replied. And tell them that if they want to destroy Kjol, they'll have to go through me first. Kjol had been listening to this exchange with growing understanding. Through the translator, it spoke directly to Colonel Nam. Warrior of the small singers, I do not wish to bring more death. If my existence threatens your people, I will accept silence. The creature's willingness to die rather than cause more suffering left the hardened colonel speechless. Here was a being that could level cities, offering to sacrifice itself for the sake of strangers. There has to be another way, Nam said quietly. Hana smiled and began to sing a traditional Korean song about hope surviving even in the darkest times. Kjol joined in, its voice harmonizing with hers in ways that created something entirely new, a musical bridge between species that had never met before. As their combined song echoed across the devastated landscape, something beautiful began to happen. The remaining soldiers at the base, the crew members on the approaching council ships, even the hardened diplomats and generals, all found themselves stopping to listen. For the first time in the galaxy's recorded history, two completely different species were creating music together, and in that moment everyone who heard it understood that some things were too precious to destroy. The Council fleet landed in perfect formation around the military base, their massive ships creating a circle of steel and weaponry that could reduce the entire continent to ash within minutes. Ambassador Vexatai emerged from the command vessel, with an escort of armed guards, his blue skin darker than usual with anger and frustration. Dr. Kim, you were sent here to eliminate a threat, not befriend it, he said, his three eyes fixed on where Hana sat beside Kjol's massive form. 12,000 beings are dead because of this creature. Justice demands action. Hana stood up slowly, her hand resting on the harmonic translator that had become her bridge to understanding. Justice also demands truth, Ambassador. And the why? Truth is that Kjol never meant to hurt anyone. It was in pain, confused and alone after millions of years of sleep. Pain does not excuse murder, replied General Karath, the military commander of the fleet. His species was known for their rigid sense of honor and duty. This creature destroyed entire colonies. It must be held accountable. Kjol had been listening to the translated conversation with growing sadness. Through the harmonic translator, its voice came out as a deep melodic tone that somehow conveyed ancient wisdom and terrible sorrow. I do not ask for forgiveness for the deaths I caused, Kjol sang. Grief clouded my mind, but it does not wash the blood from my claws. If my death will bring peace to the small singers, I accept this fate. The creature began to lower its massive head toward the ground in a gesture that clearly meant submission. Several of the council guards raised their weapons, expecting the order to fire. Wait, came an unexpected voice. Dr. Zintara, the council's chief scientist, had been recording everything with her crystalline sensors. Before we make any irreversible decisions, there's something you need to understand about what we're about to destroy. She activated a holographic display that showed the deep cave systems beneath the planet's surface. Our scans have revealed that this creature isn't just the last of its species. It's a living library of information that spans millions of years. Star charts, scientific discoveries, cultural knowledge, all stored in its memory. Ambassador. Vextai's skin patterns shifted to show interest despite his anger. What kind of information? navigation data for deep space regions we've never explored, mathematical principles that could revolutionize our understanding of physics, and something else. Dr. Zintara's crystalline form brightened with excitement. It knows the locations of 17 other worlds where similar civilizations once existed. Archaeological treasures beyond our imagination. Ko Yunbi, who had been quietly working on improvements to the harmonic translator, spoke up from her position near the equipment pile. There's more. I've been analyzing the musical patterns in its language. The mathematical relationships could be the key to developing faster-than-light communication across the galaxy. General Korath remained unmoved. Knowledge cannot bring back the dead. This creature is too dangerous to be allowed to live. Then, don't let it live here, Hana said, an idea forming in her mind. Kiel told me that this world holds too many painful memories. It wants to leave, to find some quiet place where it can mourn its people in peace. She turned to address Kiel directly through the translator. If you could go anywhere in the galaxy, where would you choose? The creature's massive head lifted, and for the first time since Hana had met it, she saw something like hope in its ancient eyes. There are places in the deep dark where no small singers dwell. Quiet places between the stars where I could sing the death songs of my people without bringing harm to others. Captain Lee Donghyun had been listening to the conversation while mentally calculating spacecraft requirements. It would need a ship bigger than anything we've ever built, and life support systems designed for a completely alien biology. I could design such a ship, Koenbi said quietly. It would take months, maybe a year, but it's possible. The real question is whether the Council would trust this creature to keep its word. Ambassador Vextai conferred with his advisors in rapid, hushed tones. The other species representatives did the same, creating a buzzing background of alien languages and clicking sounds. Finally, Vextai spoke again. Even if we agreed to this plan, who would ensure the creature doesn't change its mind? Who would guarantee that it won't simply find another populated world to destroy? I will, Hana said without hesitation. I'll go with Kiol, as its translator companion and if necessary its conscience. I'll make sure it never hurts anyone again. Absolutely not, Colonel Nam Tai-hyung interjected. You can't sacrifice your life to babysit a monster. It's not a monster, Hana replied firmly. It's a person. A very large, very powerful person who's been carrying unimaginable grief for millions of years. All it needs is someone who understands that pain and can help it heal. Kjol made a sound that the translator interpreted as deep gratitude mixed with concern. Small singer Hana, you would leave your people to stay with the last of mine? This is too great a gift to accept. Not a gift, Hana corrected. A choice. And maybe the most important choice I'll ever make. The debate continued for hours as the sun moved across the sky. Some council members wanted immediate destruction. Others were fascinated by the potential scientific discoveries. A few, influenced by the music they had heard, began to see Kjol as Hana did, not as a monster, but as a tragic survivor deserving of compassion. The deciding vote came from an unexpected source. One of the junior officers from the orbital station had been recording Kjol's songs and sharing them with the fleet crews. The music had touched something deep in beings from dozens of different species, creating the first truly universal art form anyone had ever encountered. This creature's songs have moved my people to tears, reported Captain Yala of the Andromedan contingent. How can we destroy something capable of such beauty? In the end, the council reached a compromise. Kjol would be allowed to leave peacefully, but under strict conditions. Ko Yunbi would design and build a biocompatible ship capable of deep space travel. Hana would accompany the creature as both translator and guardian, and regular check-ins would ensure that their agreement was being honored. As the council ships prepared to depart, Kjol began to sing one final song on the world that had been its home for millions of years. The melody was complex and beautiful, telling the story of its people's rise and fall, their love for their world and their hope that someday, somewhere, life would flourish again. Even the most hardened soldiers found themselves crying as the song reached its conclusion. It was a goodbye to an entire civilization, sung by the last voice that remembered their beauty. 6 months later, the ship that Ko Yunbi designed was completed. It was a marvel of engineering, large enough to house Kyle comfortably and equipped with everything needed for long-term space travel. As they prepared to depart for the galaxy's edge, Hana recorded a final message for Earth. "Today, I learned that the universe is full of wonders we've never imagined," she said into the camera. "But the greatest wonder is still our ability to show kindness to someone who's different from us, to see pain in another being and choose to help rather than hurt. That's what makes us human, and that's what will make us great among the stars." Shitting. Ship launched on a quiet morning, carrying 2 unlikely friends toward the deep dark between galaxies. Behind them, they left a changed universe, one where music had proven more powerful than weapons, and where compassion had succeeded where force had failed. And in the depths of space, as they traveled toward their new home, Hana and Kiol continued to make music together, creating songs that bridged the gap between species and proved that understanding could bloom even in the darkest corners of the galaxy.